And joining me now from right outside Scranton in Pennsylvania is Donald Trump Jr. Thanks so much for joining us, Don. We really appreciate it.
My pleasure, Jake. How you doing?
So take a look at what your father's new campaign manager told the Republican National Committee this week, according to the New York Times. Quote, addressing about 100 committee members at the spring meeting here, many of them deeply skeptical about Mr. Trump's candidacy, the campaign chief, Paul Manafort, bluntly suggested the candidate's incendiary style amounted to an act. Quote, that's what's important for you to understand, that he gets it, and that the part he's been playing is evolving, Mr. Manafort said, unquote. So, Don, you know your dad better than almost anyone in the world. What part of what we see is the part he's been playing?
Well, listen, Jake, I think there's aspects of things where he'll take things to a level that they need to be taken to be able to draw attention to it. I mean, if you look at any of the issues that he's spoken about, he'll talk about them in a way that no one else has spoken about them. He'll take them to a certain level. And guess what? An issue that was taboo or no one wanted to touch, all of a sudden, people are actually talking about it. So it's not that it's an act, but sometimes he does have to talk about things in a certain way to be able to draw the requisite attention that that topic actually needs. No one else will touch it if he hasn't done that. So I think for him, this is a very natural evolution. He's switching over, getting focused on the general election where he's going to have to, talk to that broader audience. So I think it's a very natural progression.
So when he talks about building a wall, or when he talks about deporting 11 million people in this country, undocumented immigrants, is that just playing a part, or is that to be taken literally?
No, I think that's to be taken literally. I mean, he's been, he's the only person that's been talking about that. Everyone else jumps on the bandwagon after he says it. He says it. 3 weeks later, everyone else, once he's taken all the heat, once he's taken all the criticism, once he's taken all of that, then everyone else jumps on and says, hey, wait a minute, this is actually a winning idea. This is something that makes a lot of sense. And then they do it because he's the only one of the candidates that actually ever had an original thought in years.
So the bottom line is we should take him at face value, but there might be some rhetorical flourish in there.
I think without question, yeah. I mean, I think that's only natural. I see that in politics all the time. Everyone pretends that's not the case, but that's very much what I've seen.
A Republican committeewoman from Maryland had some advice for your father. I want you to take a listen.
My advice to Mr. Trump is be Mr. Art of the Deal. It is up to you to go out there and win those delegate votes, vote by vote, and fight for them.
So are you or your sister Ivanka or Eric or any other member of your family, are you planning to help your dad woo delegates one by one on behalf of your father?
I think we'll do some of that. I think that's natural. But, I think his biggest thing is wanting to change the process. The fact that the average voter doesn't even know that their vote may not matter, or that, their vote matters, but if you don't talk about the delegates, my father could do more wooing than anyone. He just doesn't want to play the game that way. He doesn't think that's right for the country. Why should a couple people who are establishment elitists get to go on beautiful vacations? I mean, he could send his private plane and take them down to Doral. They could play golf for a week, and then we win that delegate. That's not the way this country should be run, Jake. I'm here with 2 congressmen from the state of Pennsylvania, and we have to print out cards because every district of the hundreds of districts in the state have 3 people that could serve as delegates for us or for someone else. So you could actually win the state in a landslide. And of the 70-something delegates that are there, you only get 17. The other 50 and change, they're up for grabs for whoever bribes them. I mean, this isn't America. This isn't a country. I mean, this is the way it's been. And some of these systems, I understand, they made sense 200 years ago when everyone lived on a farm in the middle of nowhere. But I have the Library of Congress in my iPhone. I have all the information I could possibly need. Most people still have cable television and certainly access to news. They know what's going on. They don't need this archaic system. But the establishment, and the guys like Ted Cruz, they love this system because they don't actually have to appeal to the voters. They don't have to care what the voters say. They just have to go grab these umpteen people who've been party loyalists and do whatever the party says. And that's the problem in Washington. That's what creates the stalemate.
So
and let me finish.
Yeah.
Because the one thing I'll say is I know guys that have been involved in the political process in this state and other states for a long time, and they had no idea. I mean, these are people that have supported at a high level, congressmen, senators, various, and they had no idea this is the process, that basically people could be bought this way. And the American people are finally catching on. They should be, and they are disgusted, Jake.
So you don't like it. I understand you don't like the system, but I guess what I don't understand is, are you going to try to woo delegates according to the system and then try to change it? Or is your dad saying, no, we're not going to do that?
Well, listen, I think we're going to do what we need to win to a point, but I think we want to win without having to do that. Ted Cruz has no chance of winning this without bribing the delegates. That's his game at this point, okay? He's mathematically eliminated, but that's his game from day one because he's not an appealing candidate to the general election voter. So he'll try to get there. He'll do this. He'll lose more states than Mitt Romney, because I can't name a single state that Mitt lost that Ted can possibly win. So I think at this point, the Republican establishment would much rather just hand the things over to Hillary, hand the reins over to her, let her run it, because guess what? There's no accountability in the party. You lose, it doesn't matter. You win, okay, great, you win. Because everyone's in on the same thing. All their job is to protect the little cliques that they formed, to keep their, the big paychecks rolling from their special interests. And that's the same thing with the delegate process that we're seeing today.
Don, do you think, just to reiterate something you just said, you think that the Republican establishment would rather run Ted Cruz and lose with him than have your father be the nominee?
There are decisions that are being made, and there's things that I see and actions happening that make me really question whether they actually want someone who could actually win. When I see all the people in this state, because I'm in Pennsylvania today, who've switched over, and the hundreds of thousands of people all over the country who've switched over from being independents to being Republicans, to switched over from being Democrats to being Republicans, and they don't embrace that. Instead, they go with, want to try to push someone else who has zero chance of winning anywhere else. It doesn't make any sense to me. I have to certainly question their motives.
Ted Cruz launched a web video this week attacking your father for saying that transgender individuals should be able to use whatever restroom they feel is appropriate. Take a look.
People go, they use the bathroom that they feel is appropriate.
Donald Trump won't take on the PC police, that ad said. He's one of them. What do you make of that? What do you think Ted Cruz means by he's one of them?
I mean, honestly, Jake, give me a break. I mean, this is how desperate Ted Cruz is, because he doesn't have any support from anyone. My father's taken on the PC police from day one. The issues that Ted Cruz is now trying to, make his own, whether it be immigration, whether it's all these things, they were all my father's issues. These were the things. My father would take the heat. He'd take the incoming fire from everyone else. And then Ted Cruz will run along and say, hey, this is a great idea that I have. I mean, it's such a joke. If there's one person that anyone who's an American, if you ask him who's the most un-PC candidate running for office right now, it's my father. So, this is a typical Ted Cruz soundbite. He can't win with the popular vote. He can't win with the people. He wins by basically bribing delegates. This is more of the same. I mean, it's actually laughable when I see it. I hadn't seen the ad until you mentioned it to me. So, but it's pretty ridiculous in my mind.
You've described your dad as a blue-collar billionaire. The federal minimum wage is $7.25 an hour for a full-time employee. That works out to be about $15,000 a year. Do you think your father would be willing to make a deal to raise the minimum wage?
I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of different places. I mean, there's areas in the country where, equal wages, it's different. I mean, I live in New York City. It's a very different sort of area where you can live by. I think you'd have to ask him directly as it relates to his policy on the minimum wage. I think what he wants to do is he wants to bring jobs back to this country. He wants to bring back so much of the industry that's been pushed away, whether it be by just terrible tax incentives for this country, whether it be by just bad guys running the businesses, he wants to bring manufacturing back to this country. He wants to bring jobs back to this country. He wants to employ Americans again. And when you have a robust economy, I think you don't have to worry about a minimum wage because people will actually be paid wages, but you need those jobs.
Your father's campaign manager, Paul Manafort, says that your father has not started any sort of vetting process to look for a running mate, to look for a vice president. In contrast to Ted Cruz and John Kasich, is there a deal to be made, do you think, with the VP position, maybe to bring Rubio or Kasich or one of those other candidates on board? Is that why there hasn't been the vetting process begun?
Well, listen, I think we have a little bit of time. We want to get there probably without it so we can make a decision whenever we need to, not just before the convention. I think there's a lot of viable candidates out there. I think maybe some of those could be people that have, run against us in this. I think my father's been very clear about one thing is that he would want someone who's navigated the D.C. waterways a little bit more than he has to be in there. I think, he's the disruptor, but you're still going to need someone who's had that understanding. So I think there's probably quite a few good options, but we haven't started the serious vetting process because I think we'll get there on our own without having to make that decision today.
Donald Trump Jr., thank you so much for joining us today. Really, really appreciate it.
It's my pleasure, Jake. Thank you for having me.